Alright guys, that's Scrappy again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Major developments in the CDL last night. Just a few days after the Esports World Cup concludes, Vegas Legion are no longer an organisation and the Falcons are officially coming in. But so much drama and reaction to the way this has been done, because as it seems right now, they are simply bringing on the team that played for Team Falcons at the World Cup, the 4 Saudi Arabian players, to join the CDL. Many former pros, current challengers players, not happy with their decision, but are they actually going to be as bad as many people seem to be making out? Or is this simply one step towards what they might well do with their roster in the future? Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new. As always, I greatly appreciate it. Plenty to get into, such as the fact that CleanX are going to be hosting the Esports Awards, which, is that not happening in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia as well? So, yeah, lots going on with regard to that today. Now, before we get into the Falcons stuff, this is quite the major development actually in this Rostermania period, because Abuzah is not actually a free agent like we thought. Now, Ben J. Nassim was the first to talk about this, and people are clowning on Ben hard and saying, oh, it's Ben's fault. I can't believe he's spreading misinformation like this and all this stuff. But it's not really Ben's fault, because apparently the league itself has just messed this one up big time. And this is actually a really big deal, because this isn't just like, oh, the community and the fans thought that he was a free agent and he'd only signed a 1-year deal, whereas actually he isn't. But it's actually apparently the coaches and the GMs and the teams thought this as well, because if you're looking at a team like Toronto, if you're looking at a team like Los Angeles Thieves, even maybe the Subliners or Cloud9, if you're looking to upgrade in one of your AR positions, the player that was probably top of the list for many was Abuzah. Had a very good season towards the end of the year, was believed to be a 1-year deal with no extension possible, so he was able to walk away if he wanted to. That apparently is not the case, not because Ben misreported it, but he was only reporting what the internal, behind the scenes, back end Call of Duty League contract tracker says. So this is just such a major F up on the side of the league, at least it seems that way to me, because this deal was signed. For some reason it was misentered into the contract tracker, I suppose, that all of the teams and the coaches and the GMs, they can see behind the scenes, and they use that to make their decisions in what they want to do. So, and even when this was kind of leaked publicly and it was becoming known that Abuzah was on this 1-year deal, the league, whoever manages that tracker, didn't then correct it. They've just left the mistake in there. So it's now been realised that actually, no, Abuzah isn't free to go. Surge are going to extend his contract, and which was not believed to be an option. And now lots of GMs and coaches are like, hang on a second, we can't sign this guy that we were trying to. They could still sign him if they can buy him out of his deal on Surge. But if you guys know anything about Surge's history when it comes down to having players under contract, they're not so willing to sell, are they? We've seen that with Pred and Octane over the last several years. So this makes things very interesting, right? Like, are Toronto going to be back on the phone to Insight saying, oh, you know, please come back type thing? Technically, they haven't dropped him, they've benched him, because Insight is a restricted free agent, so they can just bring him back if they want. But of course, what does that mean for team chemistry? Are they going to make other changes? Because also Ronnie reported that Toronto are planning to have other players go to the bench and effectively become restricted free agents as they rebuild their team. But we thought they were going to do that last year, and eventually they decided to effectively run it back with a one-man move. So this is a pretty big deal for Rostermania. It definitely dulls down the potential roster changes we might see, but it's still very interesting, and there's still plenty else happening elsewhere, such as, well, no expansion, but merely changes into the situations we currently have with the teams in the league. Now, this I thought was kind of funny from Simp. He then deleted this, I'm pretty sure, where he said, I'm so happy there's no expansion, which is a pretty funny tweet, because to go from 12 teams to, let's say, 16 teams would give 16 more opportunities for your peers, your colleagues to get, you know, paid spots in the league. But at the same time, it would mean that those additional teams likely on the weaker end, and would make the league look even more top-heavy than it already is. Now, I think that's a fair argument. My personal opinion is the problem here is not necessarily more teams, it's the roster construction of the worst rosters in the league. Because if you'd have told me at the start of the year, a team with Ghosty, great player, lots of potential, Joe Deceives, Crimp and Nastie would come 4th and 2nd at the biggest 2 events of the season, at least in terms of prize money, and I said, wow, that's quite the statement to make. But that's what happens, because that's what can happen when you put together players which in some sense have been relatively challengers adjacent. Crimp was in challengers this year, Nastie's been on the verge, obviously, so as, you know, Joe Thieves obviously went down to challengers as well, and Ghosty was in challengers literally last year. So there are players out there that if you form the right team and you work on the chemistry and you let them improve and grow and develop and actually form the right out-of-game connections as well, rather than just trying to put together talents which aren't necessarily going to work on paper, you can achieve the success that Thieves have done. And teams like Boston, for example, they've put together rosters over the last few years that they've spent money, they've brought in talents, but for various reasons they've not worked. So I don't think there isn't enough talent to make 16 teams work. I just think most of the teams at the bottom have just bad roster construction, so it looks that way. If every team was able to do what Thieves did with the talents that they've managed to find, then I think we'd be in a different story, right? So I think that expansion wouldn't, you know, necessarily be a bad thing. It'd probably be a good thing in some ways, but I can understand the perspective that the league is currently in a perfectly fine state with 12 teams, especially given the way that the roster constructions actually do tend to be done on some of these weaker teams. But the Legion are gone. Rest in piss. Not sure anyone, as Turtle says, is really going to be missing this organization. Their best tournament placing ever was top 6. I think technically they made a grand finals as Paris Legion back in MW19 in a home series, but I'm not really sure that counts. They have the second longest series losing win streak, the second longest map losing win streak, or losing streak, not losing win streak, what am I talking about? But you know, there you go. Average tournament placing of 10th is actually completely shambolic. So anyway, they are gone, Vegas are out of there, but I did not expect immediately this to be confirmed, because Falcons, we knew they were coming in, and over the last few years this has been talked about behind the scenes, but of course it's never officially happened, at least until now, for various reasons. Falcons, though, are in, and they're going to be the Vegas Falcons. Now, this is, like, I'm basically wrong on every count here, right? Because just yesterday I was talking about, you know, basically Falcons formal as a possibility. I was talking about the fact that, oh, surely they won't go to Vegas because of, you know, Gambling City doesn't really align. We'll get to that in a second. And I also thought that they would probably put these guys into, like, their Challengers Academy team and then form another roster for the main team. But, you know, seemingly I'm wrong on absolutely every single account, because they announced yesterday just straight up, Vegas Falcons, here they are, brand new logo for the team, still going to be in Vegas, Exnid, Roxas, Khalid and King of Body, of course with Looty there as the coach, the same setup they had for the World Cup literally just a few days ago. So fair play to them, by the way, announcing this so quickly. But there's a couple of interesting things about this. Firstly, I was genuinely not convinced they would want to keep it in Vegas, right? And I'm still not sure that they are. It's just a bit of a, like, branding wise, it's a bit of a strange one, is it not? Maybe you guys don't think it matters, but just, you know, Saudi organization, Saudi players representing Vegas as, like, you know, a spot, and what that city and locality represents, I'm not really sure I see the congruency there personally. And also there was another point that I thought was worth mentioning, that you guys remember a couple of years ago when Hex was talking about when I think OpTic moved out of Chicago, I think they were interested in the Vegas spot. There's been lots of teams interested in the Vegas slot over the last couple of years, and it was a surprise when it went to Legion when they decided to move from Paris. But potentially this was the slot that the Falcons were interested in all along, and that's kind of why that it was considered to be reserved for a few years, because that would actually kind of make sense in hindsight. But Falcons Looty says, coach of the team, that pretty much confirming the roster we saw there will be their starting team, just because if they're the Vegas Falcons now, but actually they're going to try and work with the league over the next couple of months to become the ReeaL Falcons or whatever the case is there, then maybe that's not the only change they might look to make to the organisation, as in, will the players all be there? But that seems to be the implication here from Looty. The boys have improved massively over the last couple of years, shown they're capable of achieving more. We have, you know, we're aware this new challenge is not going to be easy, so effectively saying, yeah, that is going to be the roster. Exnid says, very excited for this new opportunity. So this is very controversial, right? Putting this team straight into the league, and there's so many different sides of the story on this one. My perspective is, a lot of the analysis from many of the pro players is this is effectively a wasted slot, because you're giving the opportunities to players that, you know, aren't that good, aren't going to be proven to be that good in the long term or whatever. Now, I don't really agree with that perspective personally. Obviously, Octane's surprised, and he says, you know, the standings at the end of last year or the end of next year are making me laugh. Bean just sitting here thinking like, you know, are we serious right now? Because obviously a lot of these guys are looking for spots, and all of a sudden we've got 4 CDL, you know, spots taken up by players that we wouldn't necessarily have expected to be the case. Miami as well, with the Spanish team that they're probably still going to field, and Vegas Falcons with the Saudi Arabian team. So these guys were just getting toasted here from absolutely every single angle, right? Joey Nubsy, of course, former GM for the, GM coach, whatever, for the Seattle Surge a couple of years ago. Guys have actual infinite money and just picked up school friends from down the street, going on to say, why did I just see a team auto-lock 12th place into the league? Why do orcs keep doing this? I can just send the routing an account number if they want to blow cash for free. So, look, it's a very interesting situation, because I think either way, Falcons were going to get criticised here. If they spent the bag and went to sign players, you know, like let's say they tried to poach some players from top teams, they'd get criticised for that. And signing their own regional team, they get criticised for that as well. So I think on some sense there's no winning here. I thought this is kind of funny from Exceed, not even going to mention myself, but of course has effectively done so by making the comment. But I feel so bad for the Challengers players that worked their asses off to get into the league for this stuff to happen. Good heavens. Now, does this not also apply to Exnid, Roxas, Khalid and King of Body? The guys that have worked very hard over the last couple of years, managed to win a European Challengers Cup or whatever it was earlier this season in Modern Warfare 3 to earn their opportunity as well. And, you know, let's be real. I think Falcons this tournament played better COD than FaZe Black did, or the Stallions did. Like, I genuinely think that they put up more of a fight. And just personally, what would I prefer to see? A team of, you know, 4 Saudi players with potentially an exciting future and prospects. And I just like the idea of having more regional representation in the sport in general. I think it's better for the scene that it becomes more international. Or would I rather see 4 Challengers players from North America get the spot that, you know, are probably just going to get slammed, as we saw largely back at the World Cup anyway? Like, is there any real evidence that a team like Law Gaming, who won Challengers Champs and just scraped by Falcons in a Game 5, are going to be any better in the league than Team Falcons would be themselves? So, you know, and also I do think that the Falcons guys, Bance even said it yesterday, you know, they shoot better than people give them credit for. They've got a higher upside, and, you know, with time playing against North American players, they will get better. I still think it is a surprise, though, person, to put them straight into the league. I would have thought the better solution might have been sign some kind of couple of seasoned pros, and then maybe even form a bit of a mixed team initially, because the guys can speak decent English. So there is that potential, you know, Exnid and Khalid, and then a couple of other guys maybe could make that work, and, you know, keep on Nero or something from the former Vegas team. You know, there were potentially some options out there. They've decided they're not to do that. So obviously they are getting cooked bad, right? And obviously Canberra even goes on to say, I can see the boys waking up and realising they're scrimming these guys and, you know, wanting to dip straight out of there immediately. So, you know, there's different kind of debates on this, because this is what Octane says. They will improve quickly, and improvement will happen. Think EU pre-CDL, they were able to region lock and compete in NA. And I also think there's another part to me where it's very difficult for players that can be very talented in various regions around the world to even get into the league. This happened with the likes of Beans and other players, clearly talented ARs or SMGs or whatever from Europe, but they won't be getting picked up over like a Felony or a Major Maniac or, you know, some player like this, mainly because they're not from North America. So I think that it's cool to see this personally, and where I want the league to be in the future is with stuff like this happening. Like, I want to have these regional teams from the various countries to have that international element of the sport. So while right now, with only 12 CDL teams, it feels a little bit, you know, concerning, I do think it's probably better in the long term. The other question, though, is this really going to be the team that finishes the season? Like, if they come in and get slammed, are they really going to keep this 4? Or are they going to, you know, make a roster change here, make a roster change there, bring in a couple of more local talents, maybe from North America, Europe, whatever, to build up the team to be a bit better? Maybe. But, you know, this is kind of Octane's point, that 8 spots are effectively, you know, locked up. People have complained about the talent being top heavy for so long, and, you know, that's not necessarily going to change. But I don't really feel like there was any winning here for Falcons, and I guess from their perspective, perspective, ideally they want to have players in their own region. Like, as I say, if they came in and dropped a bag, they'd get criticised for dropping a bag. But fielding their own team for their own region, you know, they get criticised too. So what's the winning here, right? Maybe field a mixed roster, I don't know. Beastball Josh, though, says people that just haven't seen these guys play much, you know, they're talking trash and they're going to get smoked. And so his opinion is that it's not going to be so clear-cut. And even as Ronnie says, it's not like they were worse than G2 or Vegas themselves were at EWC. Like, you know, they nearly beat Law Gaming, they could well have done, and they were at least relatively competitive against FaZe. I mean, it wasn't, sure, the tournament winners eventually in FaZe, they did 3-0 them, but it wasn't like an absolute smoke show. They at least were somewhat respectable. Like, I've seen CDL teams get slammed way worse by FaZe over the last few years, and even this year, than Falcons did in this series. So, it's a really interesting situation. Very much interested in your perspective in the comment section below, because people's opinions on this, I think, are very split throughout the community. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.